It all started with a game called Keth Shipyards, a passion project that would become something far greater in the following years. At the time of this recording, 6 years and 5 months ago, Zoller Keth began development on a game under the title Starscape on March 3rd, 2017. Starscape was announced publicly on July 17th, and the Starscape Discord was created. As the game was still in its infancy stages, there was much to improve. The game was still very much nothing but a passion project for Keth. Starscape was created to be an open-world space exploration and combat game where players harvest materials, engage in PvP and PvE combat, and explore the galaxy. The map was made up of thousands of star systems with 4 security classes: Core, Secure, Unsecure, and Wild, each with their varying degrees of safety. Not much is known about the early alpha timeframe, with the only information coming from this period would be from veterans of the game, many of which are lost to history. This was more of a dark era as the game cost 500 Robux, as well as its low to no player count. Only 78 players played during this time, and players who did play were rewarded the Zero Alpha skin and Alpha decals for their ships. Around this time, one of the most notable factions is to enter the Starscape scene, Star Jumper Corps. Founded by Suction Noob on December 20th, 2018, the first native Starscape faction that set the preset on how factions and politics were to be structured in the game. This acted as a pioneer for the in-game implementation that is soon to be. At the time of the first influential fight, the Battle of Islecog, the game only had a little over 1,000 visits, and the current player count was 8. The Battle of Islecog happened on December 20th, 2018, the same day as the foundation of SJC. Islecog used to be the grounds of 2 drone factories, and with their close proximity to each other, it made the task especially difficult. The crew of 8 SJC members all fought the factories in what was at the time the largest engagement of Starscape's combat scene. No one in the squadron has played for more than a couple of hours, and the only ships to their disposal were early versions of fighters. Even with only them in the server, hell, the only ones in the entire game, the game was struggling to keep up with their inputs. Before the removal, a historical marker there once stood to remind everyone who passes by the humble beginnings of what combat once was. The average player count during this time was very stagnant. The first large update at the time, Alpha v3, was released. This update saw the introduction of drone waves, warp disruptors, and as well as... Wait, hold on. The ability to fly backwards? The next update came to release was Alpha V4. On June 22nd, 2019, the newest update came out, adding the most significant features to the game, NPC factions. The Lycentian Federation, Faralkan Empire, and Kavani Mandate controlled an outer ring surrounding Corsac, the beginning NPC faction you're introduced to at the beginning of the game. Corsac, Trade Union, and Syndicate also had their designated systems that they each controlled, but the new three were given their respective NPC fleets that would engage players with low faction standing and on occasion, would engage other NPC fleets. There was also the addition of the trading system, the introduction of spice trading, as well as vending. Also around this time, a new and upcoming faction would be making their debut, the Black Battalion. Rumors were heard that in the Syndicate region, there were a high number of TBB members as well as Allied Noctum Forces members. SJC would soon be on position to attack covertly, until they somehow blew their cover? Regardless, TBB members were strung up high, taunting the opposition as they thought the uneven numbers would pose a substantial threat. Determined, they stood their ground even with their leader, Suction Noob, asking for SJC to withdraw.
So we're all in our VC, okay? And we're waiting for them to warp in, and the leaders were like, nah, you guys are gonna die. You shouldn't do this. You're not gonna fight. We're literally gonna demote you if you die. And then we were gonna like, nah, we're gonna do it anyway.
Because of the lack of information, it became more of a cat and mouse chase from planet to planet. SJC found a strong point in Meze, as there was a station nearby. SJC members placed disruptors all around the warp point.
So we're in the fucking Syndica, and we're doing basically a cat and mouse game, kind of like warping around, taunting each other, pretending to warp, but we're not actually warping. And then we all warped to Meze, and there's a station, and we all got our disruptors, and we deployed a whole bunch of disruptors, and our plan was to fight, and as soon as we got low, we'd go in the station.
For context, the early days of PvP engagement were, to say at the very least, absolutely miserable. There was no defined meta, and because there were no in-game faction tags or colors, combat was hell.
And keep in mind, there was no other fights before this. And let me tell you, there was no player tags, no player colors. Everybody's name was the same color. And you could never tell who was with you. Never. You couldn't tell. You literally couldn't tell. There was no factions, no tags, no nothing. You just had to guess, okay? So basically, or you had to know the person.
The first player to warp in, Obama didn't die for this? Was the Stratus Scout, and led the charge for the incoming 14 TBB members, all in an assortment of fighters.
So then, a random guy warps in, okay? And it's Obama didn't die for this. Good friend, by the way. I caught up with them later, and we became good friends, and we played BRM5 together. That's another story. Anyways, so basically, Obama didn't die, was in a Stratos. He was a Stratos Scout. He was scouting for a fucking minefield because nobody played the game. Nobody knew that minefields were useless, okay? We thought they were maybe a threat. So basically, he warps in, and I forever call him Shadow Scout for that.
The battle was swift, lasting only a couple minutes for SJC to sweep the victory under TBB in a chaotic battle due mainly to faulty communication from enemy combined forces. The Battle of Meze happened on July 22nd, 2019. This would mark the first large-scale PvP combat event ever to take place in Starscape history. Wait, did you think that TBB would have just given up right then and there? This is Starscape we're talking about, a game where factions are at all odds against each other, and even the thought of being less than another rival will set them off in a vendetta against them. The Black Battalion is not a name that is just forgotten in Starscape history. 10 days after Meze, TBB is holding Getensir, a volatile system that is in constant state of piracy and fierce combat. SJC coordinated an attack of roughly 7 people to overtake the system after hearing word of their presence. At the same time, a bounty hunting group led by Chakor Killage, the Korton Group Incorporated, also made their appearance in attacking both factions at the same time.
The first battle of Getensir happened, and so we were called to go to Getensir, right? We were paid from someone from, it was TBB versus SJC, and we were paid by SJC and TV, someone from both sides. One was a duper. I don't really remember the other guy. But basically, I told my people to warp in and kill anyone they wanted, and I gave them all their ships back.
TBB advanced towards the seemingly unknown number of enemy combatants. The numbers were unmanageable to see on both sides. Chaos was surefire. But through efficient and coordinated strategy, TBB remained victorious between the two in a clean sweep with no losses. Both KGI and SJC suffered heavy casualties and were forced to back off the system. For now. Late 2019 saw the creation of the most influential community Starscape server, the Civilian Link. Founded by Josh Chum on August 2, 2019, this became the main place to get your Starscape news and acted as an alternative to the main Discord server. Around this time going into fall of 2019, various SJC members began to leave the faction and some went to create other notable ones. On October 1st, 2019, Bellifer, after leaving SJC, created the Victrinian Dominion, a faction centered around the ideals of communal unity, civil order, and ethical values. A few days later, another member by the name of X Ritual left the faction to embark on his own special project, being the leader of his own faction, Spectre. Spectre and another faction, the Mop Empire, founded the United Frontier. Ritual sought to increase their numbers together, and so through a new and upcoming faction led by Juiceboy, Mop was the perfect candidate. Through a large pool of manpower, their presence at the time spanned nearly the entire community. Soon after their formation, Spectre would go under a rebranding to Pegasus. Shortly after the creation of the United Frontier, a new alliance would rise, the Chaos Consortium. The Consortium was composed of the Victrinian Dominion, the Grand Catocracy, and the Mandatum Imperium. This alliance was created to stand up against the up-and-coming United Frontier. A new update was also to be added to the mix, Alpha V5. This brought a unique way to not obliterate your teammates you know so little about. Squads were introduced where up to 5 players would have a purple distinction under their name. Missions were added, ship equipment slots, and a quick warp menu so you don't have to aimlessly find what planet you're looking for. Another interesting addition to the game is player tags, which are dropped on death and can be useful for blackmailing friends and enemies alike. A new year began, and for the most part, the Starscape universe was at a standstill. Until something that would change the game forever was announced. Corvettes. There was a live event held on January 10th in Gattenseer. Players were asked to warp into Gattenseer and wait as the staff team prepared their ships and warped into Svesmo. Once the staff team was ready, they warped into Gattenseer and it became onslaught.
Stupid.
There we go.
Something's gonna go so wrong. I can just feel it.
Gotcha.
Okay, can I just really quickly say I am living my dream of being a fleet commander right now.
Warping now.
Here we go, boys.
We got it.
Is Illuminor
Alright.
good?
It's time, boys.
What's going on?
It's entering Gattenseer as we
What is
It's gonna be the drone mothership, my brother.
I don't know about that, but it's just keep an eye out.
I think it's gonna know.
What?
Gonna come out. Pop it.
Oh my gosh, why is there a huge battle going on? Where?
Oh my god!
What is that?
They're so strong.
After a while, Keth decided it would be best to continue the reveal in Drama Stowe, since the servers were very laggy, causing hitboxes to basically be non-existent. Each faction would have their respective Corvette, as well as 2 neutral Corvettes. After nearly a month, Corvettes were finally implemented on February 5th, adding a new scene to combat, and fleet composition became more commonplace. Large factions rushed to build their arsenal faster than their competition to outcompete them. During this time, Ritual saw this as an opportunity to further span his dominance. There was growing unrest for both Pega and SJC as ships kept being destroyed by each other. After a week of slowly rising tension, both parties declared war on each other. On February 10th, Ritual found himself trapped in Gattenseer by SJC forces for roughly an hour. During this time, he was also rallying a fleet of as many as he could to combat them, and once they warped into the system, chaos ensued. It was a war of attrition.
Hey, heads up! Heads up! We have a maneuver to the right. Heads up! We have a maneuver to the right.
I'm firing into him.
New target! New target! New target!
Warp disruptors have been dropped.
New target!
Focus fire.
Focus. Focus fire on whoever's told. Focus fire on whoever's told.
"15th Corvettes were lost during the lengthy battle. Numbers vary wildly, but the cost of ships totaled up from 1.3 to 1.5 million credits. After the battle ended, the leaders of both factions, Ritual and Suction Noob, both agreed to a ceasefire. An arrangement was made that both faction leaders were to meet at Citadel, paying their respects in typical Roblox fashion. Then, Ignisium threw a grenade.
Bruh.
No
Someone
grenades.
threw a grenade!
Ignisium, why?
Mercenaries station defeated the docking bay.
Bobby killed him down! Kill him!
Bobby killed him.
Listen.
Many notable factions would rise around this time, one of which being Lost Souls, led by Soul Monopoly, on February 12, 2020. LS was an already established faction coming from a different game known as Galaxy. LS was quickly able to join the United Frontier, now rebranded into what we know today as the United Federation. Soul Monopoly was already good friends with mob leader Juice Boy, which helped the transition to be smooth. Not only were there combat-centered factions being created around this time, but mining and economic factions too, with the first one being Nebula Industries, a faction that centered on mining and resource gathering created by Patwig on February 18, 2020. Only 5 days later, a player named Sergeants of America created his faction, the Outer Ring Excavators, or focused on mining and manufacturing ships to sell on the market for profit. These factions would go on to last quite a long time and hold much significance. On March 7, 2020, Keth released an announcement with the heading Public Notice from the Core Systems Security Cooperation, describing of 9 pirates attacking CoreSec convoy lines, most noticeably attacking them in unreleased frigates that Keth had been teasing since Corvettes. Hints of lore would be given to narrow down the location of the pirate base. March 11th, Keth revealed the base somewhere in Wildspace in the Eternity region. It was soon not long after the location was discovered. The first player of no faction alignment, DB653, was the first to locate the staff fleet of 9 frigates. DB653 announced their whereabouts, and shortly after, Victa members arrived. Both sides were on the fence of attacking with only short-lived skirmishes, with the power of the frigates being absolute. SJC arrived with a fleet of 30, and still, the few skirmishes that happened still could not break the impenetrable line of the ships. Soon, SJC rallied to lead a charge. As they did, UF warped in with up to 70 pilots, armed to the teeth with corvettes. Then, the battle truly began. The frigates became overwhelmed by the sheer numbers that they battled against. Server issues began to take a large toll on the battleground, as frigates were being picked off one by one. In an attempt of desperation, the frigates warped it to the neighboring system. Within half an hour, all the frigates were destroyed. Despite the pirates being destroyed, the fighting carried on. UF turned against the other factions, slaughtering those that attempted to obtain the loot.
So we're all dead.
Yes.
The Federation has been ordered to wipe everybody out.
So basically, right, at the Battle of Narelle, after, fucking grouping up as many people as possible to go kill the fucking frigates, I was able to kill one of the frigates, barely surviving, and I got some of the loot, but I wasn't able to get a blueprint, but that was fine by me because I got a dog tag, I think. So once I got the loot, I think I warped to a different planet to go like see where like everybody else was regrouping. And at the time, I didn't know that there was like a kill order for anybody who's not in whatever that faction was. So when I went back there, they all fucking ganged up on me. I desperately tried to, escape because realistically, I was not gonna fucking win a 1v20. And, I didn't make it out, fucking died. But it was fun nonetheless. I enjoyed it.
Okay, I'm being targeted now. Epic. I need help, I need help, I need help, I need help, I'm being targeted. I'm being targeted, I'm being targeted. I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. Yep.
April 3rd, 2020, Ritual and Patwig, after much instigating from each other, agree to have a fleet battle the next day at 5 p.m. CST in the unsecure system Taste A.
Oh, tasty.
Let's go, boys. We're still gonna warp one by one, right?
Yeah, I need to warp as a fleet there.
Yeah. Right, once you get a win level, don't warp anywhere else. Just stay there.
When we get to unsecure.
I don't know.
I'm gonna line to Tasty, everyone. We're gonna get ready to warp. Align to Tasty if you've not done it. Everyone go ahead and warp. Let's warp.
Federation.
By now, UF had rallied 57 ships. The server reached 70 players, but there was still no information on NBI's location.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
Oh shit.
Jesus Christ.
When all of a sudden, NBI ships warped in with a fleet of 25 frigates.
Yeah, they're warping in.
Yep, they just landed.
Can we fire for a show of dominance?
They haven't even finished loading in yet, so I wouldn't bother.
Come on, that is a lot of ships, to be honest.
Oh, they're
Yes.
getting more ships in.
It is said that Patwig grinded materials for the entire fleet a day before the battle. Although they were hopelessly outnumbered, their numbers were still quite impressive for a single faction at the time. Just when the battle was about to start, SJC warped into the NBI fleet and did not fire.
Okay, stop spamming.
Wait, SJC just jumped in to their fleet.
Oh oh no.
They're not firing. They're not firing.
This caught UF off guard and assumed SJC had switched sides. Even with TBB leader Coolidus, he said he hoped it happened to make the battle a little bit more
I
interesting.
knew that was gonna happen.
I was hoping that would happen.
Oh my god.
I was hoping that would happen. It'd be too
What
easy otherwise.
is even gonna... Oh my
Now it's
gosh.
even.
But not long after, SJC attempted to assassinate Patwig's Judicator. Sadly, for SJC, the server had around 120 players, which caused severe server lag and caused hit registration to barely work. After this, the onslaught began.
Everyone aim at the right side, breathe through exhale. Right side, breathe through exhale.
NBA declared war on us, which is funny considering what happened in the future. NBA declared war on us. We met at Tasty. I was doing recordings of TBB because I think we all went to Tasty individually and not as a massive group. But this was, as I recall, one of the first battles that used the spectator little things, or at least it's the first battle that I remember being used as spectator things, because one of them flew right over my head and I was like, that bastard gets a spectator fucking ship. I'm sitting here in my Paragon, running the risk of fucking dying, and he gets to make his videos. To be fair, he was, you know, in leagues with the developer. Mainly because he was part of the crew. And I wasn't. Everything I still remember from the battle was correct, though. Lines, moving in, big circular morass. It was just the enemies I was not remembering. So, lots of anti-warp fields, lots of blue, I do remember that. MBI were crushed. They put up a fight, but they were crushed. There were some friendly fire incidents. I think I accidentally nearly killed one of my allies, because their name didn't pop up. So I think this was before the whole big grouping things where you would have coloured names based on if you're in the faction or not, so like team colours. I think that was before that. So a lot of these names were yellow, and you kind of had to, you know, confirm your targets by mousing over the little name GUI so their actual name would pop up. And then you'd have to go, okay, is that person in my faction or not?
The Battle of Tasty was easily the largest engagement up to this point. Even though the battle was extremely one-sided, I think we had at least a 3-1 advantage. Honestly though, it was exciting, being a part of the largest fleet the game has ever seen at the time, charging into the enemy MBI fleet of 25 Judicators. It really showed the huge potential of the game, even despite the server struggling to register a lot of our shots.
Alright, so at Tasty, so we all got Judicators. They were all beam Judicators. Like, there were 25 of us. I think there was this guy that was multi-boxing too for some reason. Anyway, so SJC warped in on our side. Patwig had paid DFS maybe, I don't know how much he paid him, but he paid DFS, and some of their members were in SJC, so we thought SJC was on our side because we assumed that UF would warp into us from the other planet that they were at, and that's how the battle would have gone. But basically how it started, Suctioned told all the SJC to start firing at Patwig, but because of all the lag, he didn't die. So then all the UF warped in. We all got split up. It's like 25 versus 100. So after that, some of us tried warping out to the neighboring systems, Triarth and Elsie. And we just basically got picked off after that.
I guess it would have been before the war started. It was the first 100-player battle, so it was pretty laggy, and I had a pretty slow PC. The slower your PC was, the slower your ship would actually move in game, even if it said you were going max speed. So it was pretty hard to catch up to all the action going on in the front. The people with good PCs were making calls to attack certain ships, and especially the last few ships left on the NBI fleet. All I really remember was just being the call following orders. It was my first big battle, and it was a lot of people's first big battle because frigates had come out. Coolidus, Ritual, and Juice were pretty much the only ones unmuted in the VC. They were giving orders, basically who to kill. That's pretty much all I remember, but I know that when the player count reached 100, we were all typing in chat and really excited. because it felt like the coolest thing that happened in Starscape so far. And even Keth joined to watch. He joined the server, and everyone kind of went crazy because that was the first time a lot of people had seen him in the server.
After all that, Starscape went back to normal, with peak player counts being only around 15 to 20 during peak hours. April 13th, 2020, Keth announced the Player Factions update. This update introduced player factions, custom faction skins, and ship icons. Players were no longer required to tag individual players depending on what their relations were, with the addition of faction relations. Faction leaders and high ranks could tag entire factions with just a couple clicks, making it much easier for faction members to know who's friendly and who isn't. Nearly every single established faction leader at this point had created their own in-game faction, made a unique skin, and invited their members. Apart from this update, Starscape was pretty much dead. Since the majority of the game's player base was allied, not much would happen apart from maybe the few fights between random players occasionally. That would be until one day, an empire came crashing down. A feud began in the AFS Discord, with many unhappy with Ritual's promotion to Chancellor. Coolidist, Deemper, and Juiceboy, all hearing word of this sudden change, confronted Ritual about it.
I'm the original founder of the United Federation Alliance, and everything I've done in the past half a year has been to benefit it and to build it up. So basically what has happened is there was this other alliance called the Alliance of Free Systems, and I thought they could eventually rise up against UF, and when I saw that their leader was being removed, I decided to go to AFS, basically to destroy it. And so I've been in it for one day, and the Federation is, the leadership is comprised of 2 people from each faction. So there's like 10 senators, and without even asking me about what I was doing or bringing any concerns to my attention, they basically demanded that I be removed from the Chancellor role and that I hand over server ownership. And for anyone who does not know what that means, when someone is demanding you hand over server ownership, the second you hand it over, they're going to probably ban you from the group.
A breach in alliance rule. No factions were to be in another alliance. In an act of professionalism, they took it to a vote to remove him from office, effectively omitting any action regarding AFS. In a completely unexpected chain of events, the 3 were banned on the spot. As the Federation crumbled, AFS placed Ritual on trial. His actions simply could just not be overlooked. He was soon removed from office after a short vote. Months later, would soon reveal that Ritual found himself rigging the election with the help of UGH leader Dan XD911. Ritual overextended himself in an attempt to gain more influence, and his greed for far more power was brought into light. Soon, Ritual would need the following he once had, and he turned to familiar faces. April 23, 2020. The tension of the splitting forces were heard around the community. Those who opposed Ritual's regime, TBB, LS, and MOB, formed their own alliance, firstly named the Holy Mango Alliance, in a comical sense, but only a few hours later would be changed to the infamous Golden Accord. Meanwhile, Ritual is now empty-handed and is forced to compromise. Ritual was left with very few options and decided to contact VC leader Nevadan, proposing an alliance. Upon mentioning this to the VC high ranks, a commotion stirred of those who did not want to ally with Pega. Nevadan ended up going through with the alliance. He had previously worked with Ritual in influential battles, and the manpower could boost their sphere of influence for both parties. Victim was soon brought in as a promising candidate to solidify their presence as a super alliance. Velifer agreed to join as an affiliate soon after. The very next day, the newly allied Pega and VC warped into Gattenseer to fight the Golden Accord, which marked the beginning of the UF Civil War.
Don't worry about it. Are they gonna warp in here with a fleet or what? I mean,
He might kill Orphan. He might kill Orphan. He might kill Orphan.
After some waiting, GA warped in and the battle began.
It's fucking Jake.
They're in. They're coming.
They are!
They're in.
Oh my god!
Here we go.
Are we moving in?
Leroy!
Here comes. Clear.
Make a bite for a second. It's just not fun.
I just crashed.
Oh shit!
Oh boy, I'm gonna get combat loss.
Focus fire on Coolidus. He's in the phalanx to the right.
Kill Coolidus. Obviously, kill Coolidus first.
Within the first minute, a Pega Halo was destroyed, and it became quickly apparent that the server was quite laggy, and the hit registration was not working properly.
Walk him from the station then. Oh, he's not hitting.
No, he didn't. Okay, focus on
he's not.
Wait,
He can't get in. He can't get in.
He's fucked up. Yeah, they have no fleet commander. Get him.
Oh,
I see.
There is a
Panaman's in the station.
can't find sight. Pansar was already. Pansar was already.
You hold.
Yeah, anyone down here? Anyone who's
He died. He died.
Pull back to the station. Pull
Get
back.
back to the station. Get back to the station.
Ritual.
Go
back.
Side the ship, what?
Guys, find your ships once you've docked.
GA began the retreat as most flew into the station or flew out of the warp disruptor range and warped out of Gattenseer. Victum was supposed to show up earlier to help the Pega and VC fleet, but ended up warping in just as the battle had ended. On the same day, a new alliance was born to stand up to GA, which came to be known as Genesis. Around a month prior, the Civilian Link began publishing the Civilian Link broadcast, which became a great success. The broadcasts were engaging in many ways and would include recent events and any changes that Keth would add to the game. In the fourth volume, the GA Genesis War would be talked about along with some videos by a Pega member, Zephyr, which were a Star Wars styled opening crawl, but instead with the events of the Fallen Federation. Having a collection of resources to your disposal is key to running a successful faction. Combat-oriented factions often left their own members to gather their ships in order to participate in battles, causing more of a keep-up game in terms of new members joining in order to get the materials they need and to enjoy their stay in the faction. In order to keep members happy and keep a large supply of resources, why not pool forces together to give everyone what they want? United Corporations was created in light of that. Being composed of NBI, OR, UNCOR, DSR, and NDC, they were brought together to achieve one goal, for the benefit of all. On the other side of the galaxy, something else was starting to heat up. GA and Genesis agreed to have a fleet battle in Gattenseer. When the Genesis fleet was ready, one of the fleet commanders made the call to not warp straight into Gattenseer, but Stevesmo instead, since GA was on the defense waiting at Gattenseer Planet 4. By warping into Gattenseer from Stevesmo instead of Juamasto, you would land directly at Planet 4. Upon warping in, Genesis noticed that GA was camping near the edge of space. Once both alliances opened fire, everyone quickly realized the lag was unreal. Hit registration did not work at all for the majority of the battle. There were even tens of thousands of laser projectiles suspended in the air, creating a truly stunning visual. After the server player count slowly decreased, the hit registrations started to somewhat work again. Soon, GA suffered many warship losses, and the remaining GA fleet was forced to retreat.
Hello everyone, my name is Salzone. I'm sure you're wondering why I'm here. Well, Karma was unfortunately abducted by aliens, so he'll be forced to mine coal for the rest of his life. I'll be taking over the voiceover from here. Enjoy. After the lag fest, there would be frequent skirmishes in places such as Gatintir, but there was one in particular that stood out from the rest. GA forces, along with SJC, were camping Gatintir. Genesis forces pulled the fleet together and warped to Gat to fight. Quickly, GA retreated into the station, but they had a trick up their sleeve. Kath had implemented an unstick feature to free your ship in the event that it got stuck, which GA took full advantage of.
Who is it that again? Alright.
DM me once you're ready. I'm Binary Time Lord.
Binary, we just needed an ally chat.
We needed a way to break out of the station, and Genesis was stalking the entrance to the docking bay. Any attempt to leave the dock would have put us in risk of being immediately focused and potentially losing more ships. To my knowledge, this tactic was never used or even considered before, and ultimately this gave us the element of surprise.
Genesis decided to hold the station completely unaware of GA's next move as they began to fly into the corners of the docking bay to make the prompt show up. When everyone was ready, GA clicked the unstick button and were all teleported above and around the station, catching Genesis by surprise.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, unstick me!
GA frigates appearing out of nowhere caused mass confusion within Genesis, and most didn't know what was going on. With the Genesis forces still being somewhat not fully prepared, a lot of them were scattered, causing their numbers to drop fast.
So I remember we were like holding the station, I think we were talking shit, and then like all of a sudden we're just dying. We didn't even know where they came from. It was like they were just like popped in out of nowhere. Like, I don't know, it was crazy.
Adjudicator! Atlas Murphys Adjudicator! He's getting out!
Enemy! Bellifer's Halo! Bellifer's Halo! Bellifer's Halo! It's under the station.
Bellifer's Halo! Take down Bellifer's Halo!
Target the Halo. All fire on the Halo.
I don't see it.
I see
Okay.
it. Make sure you can't get away.
Nearly every Genesis warship was destroyed, and GA suffered almost 0 losses. This battle would go on to be dubbed Phantom Frigates. A few weeks later, on May 16, 2020, a fleet battle was planned between Genesis and the Golden Accord. This time, though, it would be in a wild system named Zelusi. This meant that there were no stations to run to and no escape. There would only be the war. Of course, it would have been the biggest battle in Starscape's history if what was coming never came. Genesis rallied the forces of around 85 to 95 ships in the secure system Nadvel. Genesis had an unlikely ally at the time, UGH. With their previous affiliation with GA, however, Genesis leaders were skeptical, but numbers were needed and it was a risk that Ritual was willing to take. On the other side of things, the Golden Accord had rallied a fleet of around 120 ships and Beta Quaset. Genesis would be on the defense, so they began warping to Zelusi. One of the Genesis affiliates, MMG, had several GA alts in the faction without the leader, Kick-A-Chicken88, knowing.
Planning for any large battle takes a lot of preparation. However, lots of GA members that were attending the battle were either new members or members that were waiting for wipe, both of which needed ships fast. While everyone was working towards gearing up, Coolidus and TPB did the most, equipping the fleet with at least 15 to 20 warships. The initial plan was to just ambush Ritual with just a couple Radixes, but after we realized that It was most likely that the leaders were going to be on alternate accounts to avoid being targeted. The plan quickly changed to dealing as much damage to the fleet as possible.
3 Radixes, a Virtue, and a Phalanx were being piloted by GA leaders and decided to execute their plan to catch Genesis at a disadvantaged state.
The plan took around a week to implement, and one by one we were able to get about 5 alts to be invited to join MMG. Each alt was initially fitted with Radix, with cannons and warp disruptors, but later, during the Genesis fleet rally, 2 of the alts were able to get frigates from Genesis, as they were also giving out warships to anyone who didn't have one.
Don't place it. Don't place it.
We can get left there. Should we get left there?
Yeah.
Where's the left?
Directly in the monument. Everyone aim as left there. Aim as left there.
Don't aim. That's very.
What's he in?
No, but just look at him. They won't know.
What is he in?
Judicator in the monument. In the monument. He's stuck. Aim at him.
There's also
We decided to ambush the Genesis fleet after the call was made to warp to the next system. The goal was just to catch a handful of stragglers who were slow to warp with the warp disruptor, so we wouldn't face the full force of the Genesis fleet while we were conducting this operation. When we decided to spring the ambush in Sedletsky, we were able to isolate about 25% of the fleet, allowing us to eliminate 5 frigates during the subsequent confusion before inevitably being destroyed.
You guys aiming?
Yep. What? Fuck. He's place it now. Place it now. Place it now.
I placed it.
He's gone. Wait.
Okay, Rafa.
After the majority of the Genesis fleet had warped, they began placing disruptors and focusing one ship at a time.
Right of monument. Right of
Let's
monument.
get to the left. He's right below it.
Fine, just get the Judicator. Get the Judicator.
Rafa, get him. Spam disruptors. Spam disruptors. Okay, next. Below us.
Let's get Captain Jello. Captain Jello.
Subs Virtue.
I see.
Shot at.
You think it's MMG? Yeah, Subs Virtue. Aim at him.
You should tell Juice to warp in.
No.
Kill this Halo right in front of us. Halo.
Yes,
I'm gonna put
get
a
this Halo, nice.
I put a disruptor.
Yeah.
Left adjudicator.
He's not taking damage. Oh, yes, he is.
He is. He's hold.
We need to tell Juice to warp in right now.
He's fucked.
Let me get his tag. Somebody get his tag for me.
No, don't worry about tags. Okay, get this Virtue. Zoomer's Virtue. Get him.
Zoomer's Virtue.
Where?
They're all shooting at me.
No,
They were all shooting at me.
Warp to planet 4. We're fucking wiping
Killed them all. They all shot at me. Like, what do you mean don't shoot them all?
All of them? How many?
There was like 2 Radixes, like a frigate.
just lost Judicator. Yeah, murdered them all.
Yeah, dude. Like they shot down.
No.
Okay, next target. There's a Virtue here. Talon.
Yeah, Talon 205. Get him, nice.
They're so
fucking
dumb.
get him. Get Talon. Okay, we're about to die.
That Halo.
Yeah, that Halo. We'll die. Just die. Keep shooting until you die.
The GA alts ended up killing around 5 Genesis frigates before the fleet was able to warp back in and kill all the alts. Once Genesis had regathered all their members, they continued to warp until they reached Zusi. Once they arrived, they flew towards the edge of space and waited for the Golden Accord to arrive. After some time, GA warped in, but another issue arose. Rumors were being spread that UGH was planning a betrayal.
Drop a bubble. VC, start killing UG now.
I'm not in the game. I can't do anything.
Everyone start shooting VC now. Quickly.
Who?
Dan at C, he's UG.
They're not shooting us. They're not shooting us.
Dude,
What
I
the hell?
really don't want to
Okay, no.
They didn't even put the warp disruptor.
Yeah, it wasn't even that. Ritual would try and talk them out of it, but it was quickly realized that there were bigger issues to deal with as GA began to charge towards the Genesis fleet. As soon as the Genesis fleet began to charge, the server crashed. Both alliances frantically tried getting back in the server as fast as possible, and the majority that were able to get in ended up being GA members. When Genesis players got in, most would begin to lose connection. After a short while, Genesis had lost several warships, and members were instructed not to log in until later when the coast was clear. After Zusi, Victim became an official member of Genesis, and was no longer just an affiliate.
GA warped into Zusi with around 100 players, and we met the VC Force, who also had around 100 players, which is a total of 200 people in one Roblox server. And naturally, because of this, it crashed, and people from both sides were scrambling in inside. For some reason, GA was a lot faster than VC in logging into the server, which VC were being firing squatted to death by GA. Some people opted to stay logged out due to comms telling them to stay logged out in order to save their ship, but when people tried to log on 1 or 2 hours after, they were met with a lot of campers who naturally killed them.
The Battle of Zusi was going to be one of the first big battles with frigates in the wild, but the system was so far away from the Citadel that we had to travel through so many unsecure systems to even get there. Out of all the people in the call, only around 8 of us were unmuted, so communication was sparse. I happened to be unmuted even though I wasn't even an FC or calling shots. All the other officers and faction leaders were always warping first, leaving a small group of around 6 to 7 of us behind in Shedletsky. Then, all of a sudden, warp disruption bubbles were being deployed by MMG, and they started attacking one of our adjudicators. None of the other faction leaders or officers had any idea this was going on, and after killing the adjudicator, I told them that MMG was actually killing us in Shedletsky and that they needed to turn back to come and help the remaining of us. I ended up dying, but honestly, if I wasn't unmuted, all of us in Shedletsky would have probably died due to the chaos.
So, the stuff right before Zusi was a little more interesting than the actual battle, but that was pretty cool too. We, GA, were warping a few jumps behind Genesis, not necessarily to catch them, but we were sent to the same place. Didn't mean we didn't kill any of their stragglers, however. Anyway, I forgot which system we stopped at, but it was pretty close. A few of us logged into alts that were embedded in one of their factions, MMG, and started to kill everyone. Took them completely by surprise. I mean, their VC was like, what the hell's going on? Before they kind of caught wind and killed the alts. We were going to warp in, but then we decided against it. Didn't think we'd be fast enough. Anyway, we got to Zusi. The lag was pretty bad. So bad, by the time we were getting ready, it crashed. And it would just keep crashing. I mean, server wouldn't even last a minute with all the players in. So we changed plans and started to kill all the Genesis members when they'd log in before the server would fill up. We were a little quicker every time it'd crash. And eventually they got the hint and stayed offline, and that kind of ended up being the battle canceled. But we'd still trap a few that were late to get the memo and chase them on the way back. Ended up being more of a big gank anyway, rather than a proper battle, but we had to make do. Server, Starscape Discord server blew up after that. I mean, general and faction chat was a hellhole, but it was a fun event. Definitely history.
A day later, Starscape would receive one of its most important updates, the Exploration Update. This change added new anomalies, X-ships, Syndicate Frontier outposts, and ore monuments. Frontier outposts would be stations that players could dock in and shop at a terminal where deals would reset daily. Ore monuments were a blessing for miners to find since they had a max level monument and a ring of pristine ores that could either be coralite, reknite, or gallium. But there was one anomaly that wasn't listed in the patch notes and was left for players to find on their own. Wormholes. Wormholes made traveling across the galaxy a lot more convenient because they would teleport you to a system instead of having to manually warp across the map to drone hunt or mine. On May 31st, 2020, Starscape would receive yet another update. A new Corvette-class hauler with 20 cargo slots, the Zubron, and another change related to drones. At the time, the patch notes weren't clear on what it exactly was. Victim rallied their members to drone hunt to see what was going on along with some VC and Pega allies. After the first tier 5 drone fleet, what came nobody saw coming.
I'm in the heat of it.
Where is this boy? Is he dead already? Oh no, he's about to be though. What did he drop?
Oh, they do run away.
Oh shit.
Oh,
Yo,
wait.
what? Yo, what?
Hold on.
Oh. Drone battleship?
Oh shit.
Alright,
click off.
I got a dip, holy fuck!
Focus fire on shield generators. Focus fire on shield generators. Focus fire on shield generators. They're on the top. Focus fire on shield generators.
I have to warp, holy fuck!
After struggling with the battleship, Victim needed reinforcements. Everyone regrouped in a nearby unsecure system, along with more Pega allies, and this time, they were ready.
The commanding of the ship. Focus fire on them. They're going to be white cylinders. Next, after that, focus fire on the central bottoms, which are going to be middle ship.
Velifer, one at a time. Velifer, one at a time.
Alright, fine.
Calm down.
It's not that big of a deal.
I wonder if I'm gonna die.
Oh shit, why am I already getting it? Alright, shoot at the reactor,
Don't sit right in front of it, please. Whoever.
Brilliant work, boys, brilliant work.
There's another small shield.
I'm taking heavy hits.
There you go,
Nice.
it's down. It's
Brilliant,
down.
nice.
Alright, get rid of these.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Loot is free reign,
The fleet warped back in and was able to destroy the battleship, officially making Genesis the first to destroy a drone battleship. For the next month, not much had happened in Starscape. The game had essentially returned to its dead state, with peak player counts being around 20 to 30 players. But one day, everything the community had dreamt of would seem to finally come true. June 21st, 2020, Keth announced that Tech Week would finally launch on the 5th of July of that year. This also meant that Starscape would finally release. On the 2nd of July, it would be confirmed. The wipe was scheduled to happen on the 17th. On July 5th, at 3 p.m. EST, Tech Week launched and everything was available at the Citadel Market Terminal for only 10 credits. Tech Week launched alongside a new update. New core systems around the Citadel, NPC faction-specific warship buffs, and war mods. War mods would end up being a game changer for warships, allowing for new turret war mod combinations to be created. But apart from this, Tech Week, which ended up lasting 12 days, was pure fun and chaos. But without a doubt, the main topic fueling the community's excitement was the wipe.
Go. Frick. Nice, nice, beautiful work, people.
Hey, keep focusing to hero.
Hey, gathering's really starting to take a toll here.